One thing I talked about when I was in Pennsylvania was how to look for and how to shop for good quality gear. And I guess we should probably talk about that. Huh? You can go to a feed store and you can buy a head stall. So when I'm shopping for a piece of gear, one of the things, the telltale signs of a good quality piece of gear is stitching. If you look at the sewing should be straight, right, and not all over the place. How many of you guys sew at home on a sewing machine, clothing at all? A little bit. So you know that there's tension to the threads, and the tension on the top thread should be the same as the tension on the bottom thread, because when the two threads come together and loop in the center of the material, you don't want to see that loop. So there's probably nothing here I can show you that is a bad sewing job, but you want to make sure that the sewing or the stitching looks the same on the top of the material as it does on the reverse side of the material. If it doesn't, walk away. The other thing you want to make sure of is that, and this is very important, it's a pet peeve of mine, we were just talking about it, is that the stitching, the leather had a groove for the stitching to lay into, and you actually cut that groove out with a tool. And what happens when you cut that groove out with a tool, when you go to sew it, the sewing is sort of inlaid into the surface of the material. The stitches are. If the stitches aren't inlaid into the surface of the material, it's more apt to wear out faster, because the thread is laying on top of the surface of the material, and it can just get rubbed off. It can wear off. So that's another tell-all when you're shopping for gear. You want to make sure that it's inlaid or inset into the surface of the leather. Those are the two big ones. Just look at that. A lot of the times you'll probably ixnay what you're looking at just by looking at those two things. The next thing would be transitions. And one thing, this is a Sarah Hagel head stall. She, in my opinion, makes the best head stalls available. Transitions. So if you look at transitions from where the leather folds back over itself, where there's a buckle, there's a smooth transition in here. She builds a wedge and a ramp in here with this piece, so there is not a blunt end on this side where it's in contact with the horse's cheek. And you'll see that up here too on the brow band. There's a smooth transition. There's a ramp in here. If there's a blunt end in anything that's in contact with the horse's body or with your body, it's going to create a stress point on you or the horse. So you don't want that. What it ends up doing is wearing on you and bugging you. Imagine if you were sitting on something, if there was a lump of something underneath the seat of the saddle and you were having to sit on that all day, you'd be rubbed raw right there. Same thing with any kind of leather work that's around the horse's face, or leather work in general for that matter. If it's in contact with the horse, same thing like right here. So there's a transition here where this folds over and is up against the belly. It's lined, there's a wedge in here, and then it's all smooth. That's the other thing you want to look at in gear. You go to the feed store and just check stuff out after we talked about this, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see stuff that is just not, they don't pay attention to detail as much as you would think. And generally, when they don't do that, that piece of gear is not going to last you as long as, say, something like this, just because that attention to detail, and usually when it comes with that attention to detail or lack of attention to detail, the quality of the material isn't very good either. So if you were just flying blind going out there shopping for something, those are the three things that I would look for, just in general.
Or they could just get them from Sarah.
Or they could just buy them from Cal or me, and then you wouldn't have to worry about that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and hers are priced, they're reasonable when you look at the amount of work.
Yeah.
Now that I know a little bit about leather work, and I look at that and I'm like, oh, this would take me a long time. There's a lot of work in making all those things meet up properly, and like he said, he's like, I tried one once, I'm not, we'll just get them from Sarah.
Yeah, I tried to make these too. Yeah, no
But
thanks.
she's got it dialed in and she has a process, but for the amount of effort that goes in them, they're a good balance.
Well, just as a craftsman, I like to point these things out just because of pride and craftsmanship. Just like in anything we do, you know, yeah, pride and craftsmanship, you want to educate your customer on what you're actually doing so they know what to look for. And not only your work, but in everybody's work. And then you guys have a better understanding of what you're looking at too.